Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast. I am your host, Andy Clark. This is episode 91, and we're taking a little bit of a break in our executive functioning series because the new year is coming. This airs on January 30th, no, December 30th, 2024. And I feel it's really important that we really talk about how to set yourself up for success this year with your child and how to set your child up for success. So this episode is Juggling It All in 2025, Managing the Expectations and the Realities in Parenthood. Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast. I am your host, Andy Clark. When I first started learning about executive functioning, it was a game changer in understanding and supporting my son with his big emotions. I felt like I had finally found a huge missing piece of the puzzle. And now I want to share that with you in this executive functioning series. The series dives into the foundational layers of executive functioning skills. These skills aren't just about getting organized or managing time. They're the backbone of how we regulate emotions, which is directly tied to the big feelings our kids experience, like anger, anxiety, and frustration. Think of executive functioning like an orchestra. Imagine the conductor trying to guide each section as he's struggling. The strings come in too early. The horns are playing too loudly. And while some parts are on track, even one or two sections being off can throw the entire piece out of harmony. That's what happens when the conductor of our executive functioning system struggles. It impacts how everything flows together. Mood regulation, social cues, how we make it through our day with focus, planning, organization, and more. Through this series, we'll break down the sections of the executive functioning orchestra, helping you understand how to bring them into harmony so your child and your family can thrive. Let's dive in. So let's get started. I have gone through so many emotions through the years in helping my child, which is why I do what I do now. This is like why I left first responders in order to help other parents just like me. Oh my gosh, feeling lost, feeling lonely, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like I'm failing my child. Oh, the emotions I've gone through in this whole roller coaster have been amazing. And something happened recently myself, and then I was speaking with a couple of others, with a friend, with some clients' parents, and I realized that I really needed to talk about this today. So we were on vacation, and oh my God, my son did amazing, amazing. Past vacations, like he needs to know we always do all inclusive because he knows that there's structured breakfast, structured lunch. He knows where we go. He knows what we do. He learns the routines. He knows what's happening, and he's good with that. My dream is to be able to go off resort. I mean, I've lived in different countries. I go off the beaten path. That it has been hard for me, just my personality, to be at all inclusives, but it's what my son has needed. And I finally saw this time round that he's getting to the point where he may be able to travel differently. In the past, needing this structure, where last year we, for breakfast and lunch, were always in this one buffet area, and we always had the same seat. He needed the same seat. It was completely tucked away in a corner. People usually didn't walk to the totally other end of the buffet area in order to sit there. So we were lucky we got it. But the second last day, that seat was taken by somebody at breakfast. So my son walked around. We took the table beside my husband, my other son, and I. And the one son who struggles with change, struggles with different transitions, changes of routines, he walked around with his plate empty around the buffet for 45 minutes until these people left. And as soon as they left, he filled his plate and he went over to that table. And Angela, who was the woman that was there all the time for breakfast and some of our dinners, amazing woman. She, after that, we were there only one more day, saved that table for us. And my husband, my other son, and I, we ate as usual and we did our own thing. And we didn't cater to my other son, but we also didn't cause a big deal about it. And this is a big thing with cognitive flexibility. Very flexible. This is where inflexible, where this is the table I have to sit. This is where I have to eat. This is where I have to do things. That describes my son to a T. And this is where, too, we get the huge perfectionisms, making mistakes, struggling in public with feeling like he's socially awkward when he's actually a great social kid, but he feels like this, he critiques himself so much. And the meltdowns we would have, I mean, oh my God, the food in Jamaica is amazing. We love all the different cultural foods. We love it. And even by the end of that, he's usually complaining about the food and wanting the things that he wants. It's been enough of different. He wants his regular stuff. And with vacations too, we usually do go off at least one day off resort, off the beaten path. I will usually just follow some Lonely Planet book where we hop in a cab or hop on a local bus and go into the town or the city. So we did do that in Jamaica, and he struggled. He just couldn't wait to get back. There's too much unknown, too much he didn't know about. We didn't know where we were going. We were just wandering around. He didn't know what was happening. And we had to go back a little earlier than I would have liked to our resort. This time around, oh man, he sat at different tables. We were in Cuba this time. Oh my gosh, the beach is absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Those picture perfect teal blue beaches, lots of sandbars. So there was waves to jump in, but it was only up to like our knees or our hips. So if we fell in it, like there was no worries about undertows and all of that stuff, even though it was quite windy there. Pools were absolutely gorgeous. It was a gorgeous resort. The food in Cuba is not great, if you know that. So I actually did bring a lot. I always bring a lot of gluten-free foods. I bring a lot of gluten-free desserts because he can't usually have the desserts there, and Jellos, all the dyes and colorings would set him off. And usually as well by the end of a week of resorts, just because of the food at times as well, with he might have some dairy and he might have some dyes and coloring, his skin would usually break out. Like I used to have to bring bed sheets with us, and I don't anymore because his system has become so much stronger with us working on a lot of his nervous system, his stress system, his digestive system, a lot of things that all tie in with our kids with big emotions when their skin becomes so sensitive. And he used to just be scratching himself till he was bloody. None of that this time. None of that. He actually had Jello a couple of times and the dyes and colorings didn't hit him. He had gluten this time. Gluten. This is a food that he would eat usually a slice of gluten bread, regular bread, and the rage this child used to have right after. And the changes in him have been phenomenal. He adapted to the fact that there was such wind some days. Oh my gosh, we all got sick. He ended up catching some 24-hour stomach bug, puking in a bucket, and didn't get upset. Normally with that, he'd be very short with us. He'd be yelling with us because his stress system is taxed and any small thing would bother him. He was more flexible. I can't tell you. It was just amazing. My husband and I were like jaws dropped going, wow, we got to really see such changes in a year. The flexibility of this child, I mean, he's still not at where my other son is and where I would love for him to get to one day, but the change has been unbelievable. Now, interesting through all of this, these are all these successes. This is all the amazingness. This is all where I'm like, wow, the work I've been putting in is paying off. But there's this flip side. And this is what we need to talk about today. This flip side is where we go through these different stages where we kind of get this initial uncertainty. It's this first phase where we really don't know what's happening with our child. We feel lost. We want to be helping our child. We want to help them and we want to guide them. And we want to, we know if they're having meltdowns, they're having anxiety, they're having these big emotions. We want to be able to help and support and just make everything better for them and for us, because it really does affect our lives as well. And we don't know where to start. So we go through that phase. which was me like years ago. I started actually diving into this 10 years ago, 11 years ago when he was first born. So it's been so many stages of learning, which gets us to the second piece of the partial solutions. So 10, 11 years ago, major skin, worst eczema our doctor had ever seen, like his skin, his sensitivities, projectile vomits, moods, like all of these things, which is where I really started diving into nervous system, into stress systems. This is when I started becoming a sleep and stress coach. It was because I was like, well, I'm going to learn it all because that's what I do. That's part of my neurodiversity is I dive into everything. And that's how I deal with my neurodiversities is I dive into everything full tilt, which is so I became this sleep and stress coach because I was like, what is going on with my child? His whole stress system is taxed. His gut is taxed. I started diving into deep gut, finding all kinds of gut specialists to help him with all of these food sensitivities he used to have. Like he couldn't have regular formula. I couldn't breastfeed him because everything I didn't even know, like I was gluten and dairy free, but there was other things too that I was eating that were irritating his gut. He had to go on hyperallergenic formula. The struggles that this child had from birth were unbelievable that I started diving into all of this. And I'm like, this is it. This is the end solution. And it's so frustrating when we are working so hard on one aspect and realizing, oh my gosh, yes, this has been amazing. Yes, this has made a huge change. Like our doctor at 6 years old, I brought my son in and he's going through his body going, it's gone. That eczema is gone. That was the worst I'd ever seen in a baby. And he could see still some scars and stuff, but his skin issues were gone. Digestive issues really hugely changed, which working to this year, as we're seeing, because we're continually working on more of his gut, more of his health, more of his stress system, he's eating gluten now, right? Like just fascinating. He's not 100% gluten, but he had a 6-inch sub like 3-4 weeks ago and was perfectly fine after. No meltdowns. Life normally after he'd have something like that, his system would get so taxed that the smallest things would set him off in our house. Nothing. He was perfectly fine. He was a great human being. So it's just fascinating that all of this work, yes, that was one piece of the puzzle, but it was really hard when I started realizing that there were other things happening. And I was like, why is he still struggling with being overwhelmed? And why can't he play sports? He's very highly athletic. Why can't he play sports? Group sports. He would start getting mad. He would get pissed. Perfectionism would rule him from thinking that he had to be perfect and score a goal every single time he kicked a ball towards the goal. He felt that because of how much he takes in and notices a child going after the same ball as him, he would go, you just hit me 26 times and like literally push the kid or kick the kid and start a fight. All of these things were still happening. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, what are these pieces? And I realized it's a whole puzzle. And I became overwhelmed. And there's so much information, realizing that there's multi factors. There's executive functioning, there's nutrition, there's sleep, there's stress, there's traumas. And so I was already a nutrition coach. I've been a nutrition coach for over 30 years. I've been in the health industry for over 30 years. I've worked background like massage therapy, nervous system regulation. So going into being a sleep and stress coach and then working with responders, I became a trauma-informed coach. I got that other piece. And some of that worked a bit with his perfectionism, but there was still another piece. And that was when I got into executive functioning that I was like, oh my gosh, this is another huge piece of this puzzle. And it was affecting his schoolwork. It was affecting what he could and couldn't do. He could like so advanced in math, but can't get the answers on paper, executive functioning, but also causing outbursts because you have the perfectionism. He's masking it. He's hiding that he can't do those things. You have the sensitivities to sound and just all of these things. In the not being able to stop himself from hitting and shouting and yelling at people, the cognitive flexibility, just not being able to get himself organized to go out of the house, all of these things, executive functioning, which was another stress piece. So it gets so overwhelming, right? So we go through these stages. We go through this uncertainty. Oh my God, what's going on with my kid? Through a lot of this, we're still feeling like we're the only one that is going through this because other people are like, well, why don't you just do this with them? Why don't you just tell them what to do? And they should just do it because that's how old style parenting was, right? And we get like to where we start getting one solution. We're like, yes, this is it. I'm on this solution. This is going to work for them. And then you realize that it helped for a bit, but it didn't help with everything. And then you find out more pieces and you get so overwhelmed with the information. You're like, oh my gosh. Then this is the stage that I just realized that I was at in this past year, where I have my kids home, I have them homeschooled, I'm running my own business. Because of my husband's job, I often solo parent. He works 6, 7 days a week, and crazy, it's his days off that he's actually working often 10, 12, 15-hour days, sometimes longer. So I'm often solo parenting. While I'm trying to do all of this stuff, I'm also constantly studying because I'm taking new courses as I'm learning more pieces of this puzzle. And because I'm coaching other kids, I'm like, oh, this was a thing with this one child that I'm working with that my son didn't experience. So let me go down a deep dive rabbit hole and take a course in that. That's just who I am. So I'm constantly taking courses, constantly learning. And I put this self-imposed pressure on myself that, okay, now I have these answers. Now I know how to solve things. Now I have to do it like yesterday. I need to do all of this now. I need to address all of these issues immediately. And you start burning out. You start feeling like you're inadequate as a parent. I have questioned myself so much in this past year I've not questioned. I've actually totally, the statement has gone on in my mind that I am failing my children. I'm like, I'm spending too much time in the office. Like right now, I'm up here recording podcast episode and I'm not downstairs with my kids while they're doing their work, which they do courses that other people, I don't teach the courses. It's all courses that other people have created or are teaching, and they go through them, but I'm not double checking their work. I'm not making sure they're actually putting in the effort. I'm not helping my one child with his struggle of being able to write out all of his math. I've just basically, honestly, given him math stuff that is done in a way that his brain works without him having to show his work for now, because I couldn't add it to my plate and I felt like a failure. I have been down on myself this whole year thinking, I teach this. I work with other people's kids. I should be doing better for my children. I should be doing more with them. And it's normal to feel this way. This is such a cyclical journey, and it is such a common experience with parents. But I really needed to go to Cuba this year. I needed to go on that vacation and actually see last year versus this year, to actually see how much my work has paid off, because things go slow. And it is really, really hard when you see your child struggling and you want to help get all of that hurt, pain, anger, anxiety, all of those frustration, emotions, and feelings of not being good enough, and all of these things. You just want to take all those things away from your child now, or you want to take them away yesterday. At least I did. And it's so fascinating because when I go back and I stop and I look what I teach in the support circle and what I do when I work one-on-one with clients, is there's something called a cognitive ladder. Any of you that are in the therapy world, you would know of a cognitive ladder. Think of a ladder. The top of the ladder is where we want to get to. But if we skip all of those rungs on the way to get to that top, you can't climb the ladder. You can't get up this ladder. And as I'm saying that, I'm sitting there thinking, but my one child would be like, oh, I'll just scale up the sides. I don't need the rungs, which is how he plows through everything in his life. But he's actually starting to learn to stop, which is where we're making a lot of progress. He's actually with that initiation, with the inhibition, he is stopping and pausing and actually thinking of next steps. And we really do need to stop. We need to make sure that those rungs of the ladder are spaced at like far enough apart or close enough apart that they can get up that ladder. And the speed that they get up that ladder is individual to each child based on everything going on in their life. Yes, if I fully just homeschooled my kids, and if my sole focus was taking all of these things that I do with my clients and implementing them in a more structured way. It's so funny because it is so different what you do with your kids than you do with other people. I'm like, oh, I know all this. I don't need to build out the plans that I would for a client. I don't need to build out this whole cognitive ladder. I know it all in my head. I don't need to work and plan this out. So I don't see the steps as well with my own kids as I do. I see the progress that I do with the clients that I'm working with and that I see with the kids in like the parents in my sports circle that are actually going through the program the way that I have it laid out that I do with my clients. I don't always do that with my kids. And we don't, right? And yes, there are some things too that would be best if I could farm it out. That doesn't sound right. Just have my one child with an executive functioning coach, but I have not, he won't do it online. And I have not found somebody locally that understands executive functioning to the degree that I need them to. And I would like it to be an SLP because of my son's dysgraphia and because of the way of him working in math. I know that an SLP that's trained in executive functioning, the way that Tara Sumpner teaches it, the way that I've learned through her, because she dives deep down the rabbit hole of really understanding how to help these kids. I have not been able to find somebody here. So that's why I've been doing it myself. And I'm in a big city. I'm in Toronto. We put so much pressure on ourselves. And when you get to that stage of understanding that there are tons of pieces to the puzzle, we almost want to put all of those pieces in at once. And I was speaking with a friend recently as well. Same thing. We were hopping on a call together just because we get together a couple times a month and just chat and catch up. And she's like, okay, but I can't add any more with my son. I can't add any more to this plate. I can't talk about anything with him. I'm like, okay, cool. Totally fine. Interestingly, though, we did hop on and I told her about my experience and how I was feeling like I was failing my child because I had all these puzzle pieces. And I know that these pieces need to go into the puzzle, but I wasn't putting them in at the pace that I felt they needed to go in. She's like, oh my gosh, that's me. Right? She resonated with that so much until I started mentioning this to some other people and they were saying that they were the same. So my goal for today is to really help you understand that we need to focus on one piece at a time. I mean, I've been in the health and wellness industry. I've been a coach for 30 years. I've coached health and wellness and lifestyle, nutrition, all healthy habits, sleep and stress, working with first responders. All of these things, we have to really consider what is going on in somebody's life and thinking of this cognitive ladder, which through most of my career, I didn't even know of a cognitive ladder until I started working with Tara Sumpner on executive functioning, that we really need to focus on this cognitive ladder. We need to, I've always known in working with clients, and I've learned the hard way with clients, where I saw where a client could get to and I tried to push them too far, too fast. And they feel like a failure. They feel like they're failing. They're not doing well. And they're skipping steps and are not getting to the top of the ladder. But when I take things slow with my clients, which was a hard lesson for me earlier on in my career, I need to go at a pace that the client is ready to go at. Even though I'm sometimes sitting here thinking, whoa, like we do this with our kids. You have so much potential. You can do so much. The thing is there's different pieces of their brain that may not be able to be there yet. But there's certain parts of their brain that do have that potential. And we need to catch all of the pieces of their brain up, all of the pieces of their system up, all of the pieces of their stress system, their nervous system, all of these things, their digestion, hormones. We need to make sure that all of the pieces are all linked together sometimes before they can get to that end piece, before they can get up that ladder. And we have to go at a pace that works for them. They are the one doing the work. They are the one that have to implement everything, that have to, get the results. We're on the other end, not having to do all the work that they're doing, where we're changing neural pathways in their brain. We're changing the way that their brain thinks and learns. We're changing the way that maybe their body moves, their body feels, their body thinks. Those are things that take time for anything, for somebody to just start going to the gym. There are so many brain functions in order to do that if you overcomplicate it, this is where when I was in the gym, I would not take on somebody that wanted 5 days a week because I was like, no, because that's an all or nothing. You need to start slowly learning how to incorporate this easily into your life, which could be 7 days a week, but not like full hours with me. It could be that the other days you're waking up and doing one like a walk around your block. So you're getting used to doing things slowly at a slow pace that are not taking up 5 to 7 extra hours in your time, plus getting to and from the gym. What will happen is you're like, ooh, too much, too fast. It's totally disrupted the way that I do everything in my life, and I need to stop. And it's just so hard as a parent when we see how much our child is struggling, and we see that they don't have to struggle. We see that we start having the answers and the tools, and or we can get them into the right people, and we want to get them into all of the therapies and all of the things that we know that they're going to need to help. Thing is, if we get them into too many of them, it becomes so overwhelming for them and they struggle to make progress in any of them. So it really is about slowing things down and really giving ourselves that compassion. And I'm going to stop you and say right now that you are probably doing more than you even realize. And it is okay to not have the answers immediately. I'm going to say that again. Most often, parents are doing more than they realize. I look back at this last year and I actually see all of the things that I have done with my child on executive functioning. I'm working on so many different executive functioning pieces, all the base foundational pieces. And I'm seeing how now the log skills and the flame skills, the skills higher up, are all starting to click in with him. And it's all paying off that maybe it's a good thing that I didn't have the time to push him and go as fast as I really truly wanted to, because we may not have made as much progress. But I do look back and I realize that I did actually do more for him than I thought once I really stopped. And we were walking down the beach one day with my husband, and I started really going over all the things I have done for him this past year. Like, whoa, okay, that is a pretty long list. I didn't realize it because we get so focused on the end goal that we miss all of those steps. And it's super important to acknowledge all of those steps. We're going into 2025. So things that I would suggest is really identifying and prioritizing. I'm saying this, but it's not always the right answer. So I'm going to give this caveat that the most pressing issue, and address that first. So I have the intake form. I actually have a smaller one that I'm making up that's not as overwhelming. So I'll put in that intake form in this, make myself a note to add that intake form add. So I'll add that to this. I have an intake form. And when you go through those questions, there's going to be all kinds of questions that could be causing big emotions in your child. And the thing is you might tick a whole bunch of them, and some of them might not affect your daily life at all. And you're like, well, they're part of my child, but I don't think these need to be addressed. And then there's going to be some that are glaring. And it's the glaring things that we do want to work on. Now, that being said, we really have to, which is what I teach in the support circle, is if we're going to be where we start, may not be actually, like, if it's planning, I'm not going to sit there and just go through plans and plans with kids in order to learn plans. I have to break it down. I have to go down to more of the foundational layer pieces that are required and needed. If it's something too with a child's stress system, the tools that a child needs to get out of a stress state in the moment on their own, they most likely can't do that. We need to start working on tools when they're not in a stressed state. So sometimes we do have to start a little bit differently as to where you would think. Because if you ask a child to breathe when they're in a crazy stress state, quite often they can't stop and switch their breathing. They need a lot of support and guidance from you as the parent to get there until they can eventually do that. And my son's been doing it recently. There were times on our vacation where his whole demeanor got stressed, and you could see it. And you could see that he was ready to explode. And he stopped himself and he took a breath. And he calmed the way he said something, and then told us it in a different language, so like in a calm, and we were calm tone of voice, calm language, and we were able to talk it through, which is where we want to get our kids. It's where we want to get us as adults as well. And it's just fascinating that he can do that now, but we did not start there. We actually started in what to do outside of that stress state to start building up his stress system so that he could actually implement the tools during the outburst. So it really is so different with the kids. And it's perfectly fine. Actually, it's highly encouraged to reach out to professionals. If I could find an executive functioning coach that was an SLP in the area, there is actually one, but she is not taking patients right now because she's so backed up and she doesn't even have a wait list. So if there was somebody that I could take him to, I would, to take some of that pressure off of myself, as well as a parent. As I said, the way that we do work with our kids will be different than when a professional does it. It really is. So seeking out professionals. We also have my support group, which is where I will walk you through all of the different pieces of the puzzle. I've got it all. I'm building it out now. It's open. It's ready for everybody to be joining. And every week I'm adding in a new course, a new piece. And I have my weekly calls where I can answer questions. And I'm not changing those calls. I'm scheduling those calls so that they're 3 different times, alternating each week so that they will fit different time zones and times for people. And if you can't make it, you can just ask your question ahead of time in the group and I can answer it for you on the call, or I can answer it for you in the group. So there's lots of ways to get your questions answered that don't need to be done in real time. You'll be surrounded with other parents as well, where you're not going to feel lonely. You're going to see what's happening. You're going to learn what other parents are doing that's working for their child. Will that work for yours? Maybe, maybe not. Thing is you might have 5 or 10 different parents telling you what they do for the one situation. You can go, ooh, that one I want to try. So this is the great thing, is when you are with community as well and not managing it all on your own, you are able to get the support. You're able to get the moral support. You're able to get the educational support, the knowledge, the steps, the guidance and stuff, which is all that we do have in my support circle. And really just being able to share experiences with one another is huge, to just really not feel alone, and to keep having those reminders that we have today that you don't have to juggle it all, that you do need to slow it down sometimes, and you are doing more than you probably believe that you are doing as a parent. So with many parents, we are in this journey together. It's okay to seek and offer support within any community. I'm in a bunch of free Facebook groups for 2E kids, with twice exceptional kids, gifted kids. There's a lot of parents in there. My support group is very specific to that, really just offering support within communities. And really celebrate your dedication and the love that drives you to seek the best for your children. Now, there are times where parents feel guilty if they need to pause because they're burning out because of everything that's on their plate. And just having that community support to say, no, it's okay. It's okay to give yourself a break. It's also okay to give your child a break. If you feel that your child has been seeing so many different therapists and different things, and they just need a break from it all for a little bit, that's okay. Progress comes when we're able to implement what we've been learning. And sometimes if we're constantly seeking education, if we're constantly going to therapy where we have to keep working on things, it's sometimes not able to implement those things. So it is good to take those breaks in between for you and for your child, and really celebrate your dedication and that you really want the best for your child. Really, we all want to hear your stories. We want to hear your success stories. We want to hear the positive outcomes. We want to hear where you're struggling. We want to hear where you need support and guidance. With all of us, what we do have in common as parents is our persistent, compassionate efforts. And it can be frustrating as heck when you're being persistent with the school to get support on their IEPs, when you're not receiving compassion, empathy, or understanding back. It's so tough. And having that support for that, having a space where you can talk about that, where people that understand completely what you are going through, or may not understand everything you're going through, but understand enough to know that what you're going through is tough and frustrating and hard and overwhelming. And at the same time, it can be so rewarding when you see these glimpses and glimmers of progress with our kids. And we want to be able to celebrate all of that. So let's go into 2025 with a mindset that progress comes in small steps that are achievable for your child and for you. Everyone has different things going on in their lives, and what is going on with each of our children is specific to them. Everyone's journey is their own. The less pressure you put on yourself, the more successful you will be. So for 2025, come and join our support group. Come in for a few months if you need, come in longer, come in for a year, come in for years. It's completely up to you. We are here to support you and give you that community that I know I wish I had earlier on in this journey with my son, and that I had to build on my own with friends and other people that I knew were going through this journey. And that's what the support circle is. So I hope to see you there. I would love to hear your stories about what your plans are for 2025, how things went for you in 2024. And I'd like you to really stop and reflect on all that you did do for your child in 2024. Make a list and see it for yourself so that you can truly see how much effort and time you have put into helping your child. And know that if they've made it up the first step in the ladder or a couple of steps, congratulate yourself for that. Getting a child with really big emotions, with so many pieces needed to be helped in this puzzle, up one step in a year is a huge success. So celebrate every single success. And I would love, love, love to hear them. So email me, support@andiclark.com, ANDICLARK.com. Email me. Let me know your support, your success. If you don't have somebody to tell them to me, I would love to hear them. All right. Go kick butt in 2025. Keep it simple. Know that it is going to be small, little steps, and don't discount all of the little things that you do for your child. They all make a huge difference. Take care, and I'm so excited for what is in store for all of us in 2025.